Hey guys, and welcome to my Portuguese Civ overview. In this video, I'll be going over the unique units and technologies of the Portuguese, as well as the unique and team cards they have access to, and finally wrapping up with some of their gameplay so you guys can get an idea of how the civilization plays overall. So to start off with, we have the civilization bonus. They receive a free covered wagon every time they age up, and they start with 7 settlers. So they're already starting off with more settlers than all the other European civs. They also, get a free covered wagon every time they age up. So from exploration to commerce age, you get one. From commerce age to fortress age, you get one, and so on and so on. They also have a card that increases their TC build limit. So in total, it basically means that the Portuguese, I think, can have a total of 7 town centers. Either way, they can get a ton of town centers, probably the most in the game. And overall, the free covered wagon every age basically means alongside the British, they're one of the best booming civs in the game. They're a little bit of a slower ramp up, whereas the British are mainly booming in the commerce age from the houses, while the Portuguese kind of do a bit of a slower boom all the way from the exploration up into the fortress age, because you really want to age up to each age as fast as possible to get that covered wagon with your boom. So it's a bit of a slower ramp, but you'll have an equally massive economy in the later game, or the industrial age rather. So yeah, a very good booming civ with the civilization bonus, and it kind of sets the play style of the Portuguese as one where you'll normally have one of 2 options with them. You can kind of go for some cheesy strat where you have a forward town center that you can garrison in and kind of have a staging point against the enemy. Or you can just go with a classic turtle defensive strategy with them, where you're kind of overlapping your town center fire with each other and just going for a very defensive and economy focused strategy and trying to age up to the fortress age and the industrial age as fast as you can. So with that said, let's go ahead and look at their other units. So they have, for their Royal Guard units, they have the Musketeer or the Legionario, and they have the Dragoon or the Yanete, I think it's pronounced. So with the Musketeer, alongside the British Musketeer, I think the Portuguese Musketeer is close to it, maybe not quite, but one of the best Musketeers in the game with the kind of unique cards and upgrades that the Portuguese have access to, and the fact that it's their Royal Guard unit. So essentially, they just have a very strong Musketeer unit. Obviously, it's going to be good to get a mass of these Musketeers along with some of your other units that you have access to. But yeah, just good to note, you have very strong Musketeers. You also have the other Royal Guard unit, which is the Dragoon, which doesn't show up in the fort for some reason. So let me see if I can find it here. Okay, here it is. So we have the Dragoon that upgrades to the Yanete for the Royal Guard status. Probably the best Dragoon in the game, because along with the Royal Guard status, they also get a card that upgrades the range of these Dragoons. So they'll have a very long range attack for a Dragoon later in the game when you send that card. So between your Musketeers and your Dragoons, that's already a pretty good combination, because you have the anti-cav with Dragoons, and you just have kind of a general musket unit that's also resistant to cav. So really the only thing you're missing after those units is some kind of good anti-infantry unit, which they cover with their unique units. So let's go ahead and get to those. So we have the Caçador. So the Caçador is the Portuguese replacement for the Skirmisher. And diving into some of their statistics real quick. So they have a 45% range resistance. They have a good range attack. They have a 2x bonus for heavy infantry and light ranged cavalry. So I believe that's the same as normal skirmishers. Yeah, and then they have a 0.75x bonus versus all cav. So I believe those multipliers are the same as the normal skirmishers. They cost a little bit more food, but they cost less gold. So generally, think of them as costing less than normal skirmishers. So I mean, generally you can kind of think of these as like upgraded skirmishers. So they're more resistant to ranged fire. And then I believe in the definitive edition they have, I think they used to have a higher attack and a faster rate of fire, but I believe that's been normalized now. So I think now their main thing is that they just have a higher range resist, and they might be slightly faster. But yeah, essentially just an upgraded kind of version of the Skirmisher, so fulfills the anti-heavy infantry role even better than other skirmishers from other civilizations. So you already have this very good anti-cavalry from Dragoon. You can combine that with the Caçador for your anti-heavy infantry in that case, with some musketeers on your front line. So that's kind of usually the main Portuguese combo. You know, get a bunch of musketeers, get some cazadores to counter any heavy infantry, and then have some dragoons to counter any cavalry coming in. And then if that's not enough to take out their infantry, then you also have their other unique unit and the organ gun. That also doesn't show up here, so let me see if I can find it. Here we go. So we have the organ gun. That upgrades into Ribald later on with the upgrades. So it's basically an artillery that they kind of light this one end of the gun, and then it fires off all of these. So it's almost like a rapid, I don't know how many barrels, like six barrels, kind of all shoot in rapid succession. So basically is a very good anti-infantry gun. I think it also costs 100 gold less than a falconet, if I'm not mistaken. So you can get a little bit more of them. And yeah, I mean, they're generally a very good anti-infantry artillery unit. It is unfortunate that they replaced the falconet, because I think they might be slightly different roles that they can fill. Like, these organ guns aren't nearly as good versus buildings, but I think usually against normal infantry, they're probably more effective than falconets, because even if the enemies are in the staggered formation, these guys will still deal their kind of full damage to them, whereas a falconet relies on splash damage, so they won't be as effective against infantry if they're not grouped up. So that's kind of the main kind of role that the organ gun fills. Very, very cool unit, very fun to use. Definitely try it out if you haven't already. But yeah, those are kind of all the unique units for the Portuguese. They got a lot of cool units available to them. And then let's go ahead and look at the unique monastery upgrades they have access to. So first off they have Encomienda Menor. So your settlers gather much more quickly from mills, but somewhat more slowly from everything else. But it does not affect fishing boats. I generally don't take this card. I've seen people definitely take it, or sorry, not card, but upgrade. I've definitely seen some people take it. I mean, personally, you know, I'm playing a lot of team games. I usually am not low on food, so I'm not usually having a problem with the mill work rate. And I would rather not sacrifice, you know, the rest of my economy just for more food, because that's generally not the main issue. It's usually, you know, wood or gold. So yeah, I could definitely see some strategies that take use of this, I think, but just for me personally, I haven't really found this upgrade to be very useful. But if you have a very food heavy strategy, then you could definitely make some good use out of that, I think. And then we have Bestiros, ships 22, looks like guard, veteran or guard crossbowmen, I guess depending on your age, from your homeland, plus your normal crossbowmen are improved. Okay, so it improves your normal crossbowman, that's what the status set to active means. So basically it delivers 22 crossbowmen and upgrades your crossbowmen levels in general. So I suppose this would be useful if you're defending from an enemy early on with a lot of crossbowmen, and then we want to upgrade those. Well, now you can ship 22 more and upgrade them at the same time. So I think in that kind of situation where you had to fend off a lot of early aggression, you got a lot of crossbowmen left over, you could send this and then upgrade your other crossbowmen and go for a little bit of a raid on the enemy with a bunch of upgraded crossbowmen. Could be useful, or just use them to keep defending yourself, kind of up to you. So I don't think it's amazing, but in the right situation could be pretty useful. And then we have Order of the Tower and the Sword. Ships 11 powerful gun-armed riders from the Order of the Tower and Sword. So it delivers 11 black riders. So this one, I'm not as a big of a fan of this one, because in their Yinetes with the special card to upgrade their range, they're already going to have very good firearm range cavalry. So I just think this is kind of repetitive and really not a useful card. Especially in the industrial age. I mean, at that point, you shouldn't really need these guys. They're probably just going to take up your population space. So to me, their church upgrades really aren't very good. You know, these two I think are decent in the right situation. You know, food heavy strat, sure, take this, it'll be pretty good. if you defended early aggression and you have a lot of crossbowmen left over, go ahead and ship this. You'll get 22 more crossbowmen, plus your other crossbowmen will have their veterancy status upgraded. So in that kind of niche situation, it'll be really good. But I mean, look at the cost. It costs 2,000 wood. Like that's definitely not cheap. And you're talking about crossbowmen here. At that point in the game, in the Fortress Age, I mean, you want to start getting at your musketeers, your dragoons, your castors, your organ guns, and you want to be upgrading these too. So, I mean, to me, you're wasting a lot of wood on crossbowmen at that point in the game. So, I wouldn't really recommend doing that. But if you're in that situation where you can find some use out of that, might as well go ahead and take it. Last thing to say about their unique units and technologies is their revolutions. So for the Portuguese, let me see here. So the Portuguese revolts, they have Brazil, Peru, Indonesia, Barbary States, and Gran Colombia. So if you're into revolts, those are your options there. And with that, I think that's all their unique units and technologies. So let's go and look at their cards so you guys can get an idea of what kind of decks you're going to be building with the Portuguese. So now onto the Portuguese unique cards. First off, we have Llama Ranching. You can now train llamas from livestock pens. I don't think I've ever taken this card. I'm not really sure what situation this would be very useful in. Maybe llamas, I guess maybe they have an upgraded work rate and they could be useful in a certain situation, or maybe there's a way to send them to your Incan ally to use in their fire pit, but I can't really think of a great use for this. But I haven't played around with it too much. If you guys have, let me know in the comments. But yeah, I pretty much have never taken this card and probably never plan to take this card. So moving on, next we have whale oil. It's new methods of rendering whale oil allow you to get gold from whales 35% faster. This is the same as that British whale oil card, and same kind of idea here with that, which is that obviously if you're on a naval map, you're going for naval boom, so it could definitely be useful to help you get more gold. I think this is more likely to be picked up in this Portuguese deck than the British equivalent, because there's not as many good options to them as the British. Like, you don't have a 3 settler card to begin with because you're already starting with 7 settlers, so there's not as much competition for a card. So if you are playing a naval map, I think it's more reasonable that you can actually take this whale oil card and use it effectively, because I mean your other options are just sending crates, or maybe just sending economic theory or something like that. I mean, that is kind of an argument against this, which is you're talking about 35% work rate. Well, I could just take economic theory for a 10% better work rate in everything, and maybe you find that to be more useful. So it kind of depends on the situation, but if you're going for a very gold heavy strat and there's a lot of whales around, this could be a pretty good option in a naval boom situation. But you likely won't be able to send this card till the Commerce Age, since usually the naval booms are later in this game than in Age of Empires 2. So just keep that in mind. You probably won't be sending this as your first card or anything. It'll probably be a little bit later. So next we have Bandeirantes. Ships 1 additional explorer to your colony. So this is actually pretty useful for the Portuguese, because one of their explorer traits is they have a little telescope thing, and they can actually use it to scout out any part of the map. So you can basically use this ability on cooldown if you remember to scout the enemy base, see what kind of strategy they're doing, and be able to react accordingly. So if you send another additional explorer colony, ship 1 additional explorer to your colony, then now you have 2 explorers where you can scout the map. So you can maybe scout his docks to see what he's building over there, and then you can also scout his main base to see what he's doing over there. So you might not have thought that this was a very good card, but if you're going for a lot of map control and you want to see what the enemy's doing, then this could actually be pretty useful for the Portuguese. So then we have Gunpowder Infantry Attack, Musketeer and Caçador Attack increased, so you have kind of your normal infantry attack upgrade for the Portuguese that all the ships kind of share. And then you have Navigation School, all warships are cheaper and train faster. So along with the British, the Portuguese also have a very good navy. you'll notice in a lot of ways the British and the Portuguese are actually very similar. They're both very good at booming. They both have good navies. They both have good musketeers. There's a lot of similarities I feel between the British and the Portuguese. They're just slightly different. So, and from their navy side, they have this card, so all warships are cheaper and train faster. So it's a very good card on a naval map because you're going to be spending a lot less wood and coin, and you're going to be getting out your ships a lot faster. So very good card on a navy map. Your ships won't be as strong as a civ like the British, but you can get a lot more of them out because of this card. Then we have House of Braganca. From now on, trade route upgrades are free and available in any age. I've seen upgrades kind of cards like this for a few different civs, but I'm not a huge fan of these in general. I mean, the trade route upgrades to me aren't that expensive anyways. So I don't really see much use from these cards, to be honest. I think just forego this card for a better card and just buy the trade route upgrades. They're not that expensive. That's my opinion on it. Anyways, let me know what you guys think of the comments. Next we have Donatarios. Increase town center build limit by 2. So this is what I was talking about before. With this card, Portuguese can get some of the most town centers in the game. And you might be wondering why this is actually useful. I think the only situation where this would be really useful is kind of if you're going for a revolt where units are popping out of your town center. So I can't remember. I think people were talking about using the South African revolts, or anyways, there's some revolt that relies on your town center because the town centers will produce troops for you. So to me, that kind of seems like the only situation where this will be very useful because you can take advantage of the extra town center. I think in most games, having the 4 or 5 town centers, like that should be plenty. I mean, you're not going to be building many more villagers than that. So unless you want to go for some cheesy revolt strategy, I would just not even worry about this card. I don't think it's that useful. Next we have Dragoon Combat. Dragoon and Hussar attack and hit points increased. I would definitely take this card because you're going to want to be building a lot of Dragoons as the Portuguese. Because this card in combination with this card we'll get into later, which is Genitors, where Dragoons have increased range and line of sight. These two cards combined, plus arsenal upgrades with advanced arsenal and so on, will just they'll make your Dragoons some of the best Dragoons in the game with a crazy range and attack and hit points. So definitely worth getting this. Very good card for the Portuguese. And then we have artillery hit points. Increase artillery hit points by 20%. This is actually pretty good for the Portuguese because their organ guns can be pretty fragile. So getting them some more hit points. You can also get more hit points with advanced arsenal upgrades. So those two combined will make your organ guns quite a bit more resilient. And in a game that's going to the late game, which the Portuguese are best suited for, you're definitely going to want this card just to make your organ guns a little more resilient to range fire. It's definitely worthwhile getting that. Then we have Portuguese White Fleet. Each dock will create 4 fishing boats. Yeah, I mean, if you're going for a big navy boom, I could definitely see using this card. Again, I usually don't play navy maps, so to me, I've never used this card. And if you're on any land map, obviously no point in taking this card. But if you're going for some kind of like fast fortress and you're still booming on with fishing boats, then I could see you taking use of this. But I mean, it's per dock, so I mean, you're gonna probably want like 2 or 3 docks to get a bunch of fishing boats. But you're kind of wasting a card. I don't know. I haven't tried this out too much. To me, it doesn't seem that useful because I feel like by the Fortress Age, you would have had enough wood or you have enough wood to build as many fishing ships as you want anyways. And you're getting like 12 fishing boats. That's a lot, right? Or 12 or more. That's a lot of fishing boats. So yeah, I don't know. I think you would mainly want to do this if you're trying to starve your opponent out of resources. So if I was taking this card, what I would actually do with it is I would take those 12 extra fishing boats. I would just send them to the fish that are close to your enemy and then use those up so that they can't use the fish, and then bring them to the closer fish. So in that way, you're kind of starving the ocean of resources from your enemy, and then you can hold your opponent away from the closer fishing the closer fish to your base. But I think that's pretty niche. So I don't know. This on the surface to me doesn't seem like an amazing card, but let me know what you guys think. Then we have Passage to Nippon. Ships a number of Ronin Samurai mercenaries, deliver 5 Ronin. Another one where I don't know that this card is really that good. However, it's a very fun card. I mean, if you've ever used a samurai, they do this like weird kind of high kick animation that does like a big splash AOE damage. So they're a very fun unit. But if you think about the practicality of this, if the enemy has a lot of muskets or any kind of ranged infantry, I mean, they can just spread those out and they're gonna, I mean, 5 Ronin isn't that much, so they're probably gonna wipe these out very quickly. In the right situation, these Ronin could wipe out, a whole army. Like if they are able to get up to them, I mean, they wipe through troops very quickly with their AOE attack. So it's not useless. It's just that you have to be confident that you'll actually be able to use them and that they won't get mowed down before they get to the enemy. So I would say if you have a lot of other infantry units that you can use them as a meat shield, then I could see this actually being very useful. And they're also very good at destroying buildings. So if you're already kind of snowballing, you could send this and just start going to town on the enemy base, and just killing the infantry as they pop out of the barracks. So I would view this more as kind of like I guess either a panic card. If they're in your base, you can pop them out and just hit the infantry that are in your base already. Or if you have the upper hand in a game and you just need that extra little push, then this could be useful there too. So yeah, definitely a fun card. I could see it being useful in the right situations. You just have to be very careful when you're actually using it, so that you're not just wasting 1,000 gold for these guys who get killed instantly. Alright, so next we have Gunpowder Infantry Combat, Musketeer and Castador attack and hit points increased, so kind of the normal infantry attack and hit points increase. So obviously good to have. You'd probably be building both Musketeers and Castadors, so yeah, just a very good card to take. I would almost always take this card. Then we have Genitors, another card that I would almost always take. So Dragoons have increased range and line of sight. So this is just a very good card. Makes your Dragoons incredibly good. Best Dragoons in the game, I would say. So like I said, these in combination with each other, I mean, your Dragoons are just so crazy as the Portuguese. It's actually a lot of fun to use too, to just kite people around with these guys. So definitely consider taking it and just trying it out for yourself. Yeah, probably one of their best cards, and this Genitors thing makes your Unetes incredibly strong. Then we have Portuguese Expeditionary Force, ships 6 Caçadores and 6 Dragoons. I mean, cool card. You're sending Caçadores and Dragoons, which are troops you want to be sending. But to me, I mean, it's only 6 Caçadores, 6 Dragoons. If you're in the Industrial Age, I mean, you're going to be sending your factories. You should have plenty of resources by the time you could send this. So I wouldn't waste the deck space on this card. It's only 12 military units. Just get the factories up. You should have plenty of resources from that. If you're making it to this point in the game, I would say this card is pretty useless. And then we have Range Finding. So this is another very good card. Mortars get 8 line of sight and 8 range increased. So this is actually pretty insane. I think this is like a third of their total range. So, I mean, you're just going to be sieging the enemy base from super far away with your mortars, which already have a long range. So this is actually one of the really good mortar upgrades. And you can kind of see a theme here with the Genitors and the mortar combat. The Portuguese have an extremely good long range army. Their Dragoons have a long range, their Caçadors have good range, their Musketeers have good range. I mean, normal range, but it's good anyways. And then range finding, your mortars will have good range. So if anyone tries to come, hit you with melee units, they're gonna have a very hard time because they have to cover so much ground to get to you. So yeah, it kind of plays the Portuguese long range gun play style. So I like that a lot. I think it's very fun and definitely a very good card in range finding to improve your mortars. Yeah, I mean, you can also combine this with other Civ team bonuses of your mortars to make this even stronger. But yeah, very good card. Always consider taking this one for the mortars. So with that, let's jump into the team cards. So first we have Team Early Dragoons. So this is one I actually tried to use. I thought this would be a very strong card, and it could still be, I might be wrong. But I tried to use this card in a game with my friend, and we went for kind of like a Commerce Age rush with Lakota Rifle Riders. But the thing I realized is there's just better options because, I mean, you're getting Dragoons out earlier, but you have to remember Dragoons are anti-cav units. They're not amazing versus infantry. If you've ever used Reuters from the Dutch, you'll realize Dragoons and those kind of cavalry are actually really bad at killing villagers, which is what you're really going to be wanting in the early ages. Because, at max, you probably deal with like 5 cavalry in the Commerce Age if they have a card for that. Most people won't spam out more cavalry than that. If you're going against a Civ that does plan on doing that, then sure, this is going to be useful. But I think in most games where the enemy is not going to be spamming out a lot of cav in the Commerce Age, then this is kind of pointless. Because getting these kind of units out earlier is really not a big help. I mean, you're not going to be able to raid the enemy villagers that effectively, not as effectively as with hand cavalry. So all you're really going to be doing is able to counter enemy cav more effectively. So if anything, I find this to be actually a more of a defensive team card, which might not be obvious at first. So once I realized that, this to me is actually a pretty terrible card, and I never take it anymore. I originally thought this card would be very overpowered in an organized 2v2 game, but I feel like I realized that that's really not the case. You're going to be wanting hand cav for raiding, not Dragoons or similar cavalry. So, I mean, I could be wrong on this one. If you found a good combo with this one, let me know. I'd be happy to try it out. But next we have Team Cheap Outpost. Team Outpost block houses more huts, and castles are cheaper by 30% of their wood cost. Yeah, I mean, sure, if you're going for a turtling strategy, which Portuguese probably will be with their kind of boom mentality, it could definitely be useful, but I don't know. I never take this card. I would say just take, Frontier Defenses or something. Just take these Outpost cards. I think it's a better use of a card. Plus, you can send this infinitely. Yeah, I mean, I think you'd have to have a pretty specific strategy to make this card very useful. I think there's just better cards to take. Next, we have Team Fish Market. Team boats gather food from fish and coin and whales faster by 10%. I'm actually just going to lump these together because I'm going to say pretty much the same thing. So we also have Team Coastal Defenses, increased building attack against ships. So, I mean, like I always say, if you're on a naval map, sure, take these cards. They're going to be useful. Probably not, better first choice cards than certain other ones, just because of how naval booms play out. In Age of Empires 3, you're usually going to be going for a little bit of a later naval boom than you would in like Age of Empires 2, for example. So this will usually actually be like maybe a second or third card to send. But sure, if everyone on your team is booming with the Navy, then yeah, it's going to be really good, obviously. It'll give you an edge over your opponents anyways. So yeah, if you're on a Navy map, sure, have these on a naval-specific deck. Otherwise, probably not worth it. Team Suit Surgeons, as always, trash. Don't take it. I just don't find it useful. Then we have Team Improved Walls. Team all hit points increased by 200%. I'm actually looking at doing a game with this one. I'm curious to combine this with other team cards and just see how strong walls can get. But as of right now, I would never take this standalone. It seems pretty terrible to me. If your enemies are going to break through a wall, I mean, they're going to break through a wall. If they're going to break through one wall, add a second wall. That's better than taking this card. Just add a second wall. I mean, this, it's 200%. It seems like a lot, but to me, getting through a wall is a pretty binary thing. Like, your enemy either is or, they are going to get through your wall or they're not. And if they get through and it's undefended, well, it doesn't matter how many hit points that wall is going to have. And they can just bring mortars, and those will destroy your walls no matter what. So, in theory, I think this card is pretty useless. I am going to try it out and see if I can make it work, but right now I'm just kind of thinking that this card is not very good, just because of, how you generally use walls and kind of how games play out. They're going to break through one wall, they're going to get through, and then if you aren't able to defend them, they're gonna wipe out your economy. So I don't really see this being that useful. Just build multiple walls if you want this card. Then we have a card that is probably useful, Team Gunpowder Infantry hit points. So all Gunpowder Infantry hit points on your team are increased by 15%. So yeah, definitely useful card. I believe it replaces, for Portuguese, yeah, they don't have like an infantry. They don't have an infantry attack or hit points card in the Fortress Age, so this is kind of the replacement for that as their team card. So because of that, I would pretty much always take this, maybe even if you're not in a team game, just because, they don't have another option for their Fortress Age card for this. And it'll make your Musketeers and your Castadors more tanky, which is always a good thing, more survivability. It also plays into their kind of long-range play style, where they'll be kind of guarding your other units, and so they'll be taking the brunt of the range fire, so the more survivable they are, the better it is. So yeah, good card. Then we have Team Crates of 1000 Wood, Team Woodsworth. I've only really taken this if I couldn't find a better card to take. In general, for any kind of economy, like crates and stuff in the Industrial Age, if you're playing a team game anyways, you should be able to boom to Industrial Age and have plenty of resources with your 2 factories or whatever your Civ has. So I don't think sending 1000 wood to everyone's going to really help that much. If you're all in the Industrial Age anyways, you should have plenty of wood. I would say the one kind of situation where you could consider this is if maybe you're like in a 3v3 and you guys have decided that the other 2 teammates are going to go for a rush and then you're going to boom, but then you're going to help them by sending this card and giving them wood to help them out or something. Maybe in that kind of case, you might send this, but I think in a lot of those cases, you might as well just take a different card that's going to help yourself more. And in helping yourself, you're probably going to help your team more because you could get out like 5 organ guns, you could get out more troops, you could get more range on your mortars. Like there's just, I think, other better cards that you're going to take way before you take this. So yeah, to me, I would definitely have this pretty low on a list of priority. And if you can't fit it in, don't worry about it. Next, we have Team 1 Monitor. So same thing as every other Civ that has this card. If you're on a naval map and you're snowballing the game, you guys are on the have the upper hand, and you're ready to destroy other buildings, then sure, take this card. It'll be worthwhile, but I wouldn't say an amazing card. It's only 1 monitor per team, or per teammate, I should say. So I don't think it's amazing by any stretch. They should have plenty of resources to make their own monitors at that point in the game. So yeah, that's all of their unique cards and team cards. So with that, let's go ahead and hop into some gameplay so you guys can get an idea of how the civilization plays overall. So now into the gameplay. So in this game in particular, I was building only organ guns, and it ended up being a 3v4 at one point. So the link to that full game is in the description below. But I think it shows off how great the Portuguese economy is and how well they're able to boom. I'm planning on doing a future video where I only build Yanetes and only build Castors, so that you guys can get an idea of how each of those units play individually. And then maybe if you guys want, I'll do an additional guide for the Portuguese, just kind of general strategies so you can see the full combination of all their unique units together. But anyways, I think the Portuguese are pretty similar to the British in that they're one of the best booming civs in the game. And just a lot of their playstyle is very similar in a way. Like I said earlier, I think they have a little bit more of a constant ramp up. So each age you go, you get the new free covered wagon. So you really kind of want to get to the Fortress Age, have the 3 town centers, and kind of overlap their fire for kind of a defensive strategy. Now, if you don't want to do that kind of strategy, then I guess your other option is you can kind of place a town center close to enemy base as like a forward operating base kind of deal, and put a barracks there and spam out musketeers or cazadors or something for some early aggression. But I think, it can work if you're a really good player. But in general, the Portuguese are really more suited to just kind of booming up, getting the good economy, getting, their musketeers, the cazadors, their yanetes, all those good unique units that they have. Being able to get those en masse is really where their power lies, I think. They're also especially strong on naval maps, again, very similar to the British, and they have a very good fish boom. They also have very strong map control because they can get so many town centers. So you can kind of place town centers all around the map after your initial 3 if you want to. And you can kind of just take control of a lot of different areas of the map and have good control. Um, they can get up to 6 town centers. So if you want to go for some kind of cheesy revolt strategies, then you can build a lot of town centers. And if it relies on the town center to provide the troops, then you could do something like that. It also works with the revolt because you can just send the card to build villagers, and then you'll be able to get back up to your villager count very quickly after a revolt. So definitely a good civ to try out revolt strategies with. Probably one of the best. The Portuguese are also the kings of long range combat, aside from British longbows and things like that, because they have the +4 range on dragoons, and they also have the +8 range on mortars. Plus, they have castadors, which just have good range in general. And then you kind of have the organ guns to face any heavy infantry melee units that are able to get past that initial line of fire. But yeah, with the long range mortars sieging the base and the long range dragoons to stop any cavalry from attacking those mortars. I mean, you have the dragoons, you have the mortars, and you back those up with the muskets and the castadors and everything, and you just have this army that can just kind of sit back and siege a base with very little recourse from the enemy. That's incredibly dangerous to face late game. I mean, you're gonna have a very hard time breaking through a Portuguese their front line if they're doing something like that in a methodical way. So you really don't want to let the Portuguese get to the point where they can do that. If they're to that point, unless you're some kind of special civ that also has very good late game units, maybe like the French with cuirassiers, maybe that you could break through their line. But either way, it's going to be very difficult. So Portuguese have a very good boom into a very good late game setup with the long range from their units. With their unique units, they also have very good anti-cav from those upgraded dragoons that we talked about earlier at the Yenetes. Very good skirmisher unit with the Castador, very resistant to range damage. The organ guns are just overall very good for anti-infantry. Not as good versus buildings, unfortunately, but that's where your mortars come in. So you can even do some crazy combinations, like you could build Yenetes with organ gun combos. So you have the Yenetes for the anti-cavalry for that will come after your organ guns, and then you can build the organ guns for all the anti-infantry. In team games, in this game actually, where I was doing only organ guns, what we did was I had the organ guns for the anti-infantry, and then he actually picked Swedish for the Karelians because they have a ranged attack modifier bonus versus cavalry. So I wipe out all the heavy infantry that are coming at us, and then he just shoots down all the cavalry from range. So that combination together is extremely deadly because the Karelians are so strong against cav. They just wipe out all the cav before they even get close. I think that combination is even better because the Karelians also aren't terrible in melee combat versus other infantry. That combination, when you'll see in this game if you watch it how powerful it was. But I think the Karelian and organ gun combo at this point in the game might be one of the strongest combinations in the game. Obviously, the Karelians in general are just very strong, so that's not saying too much. But definitely try it for yourself. We had a ton of fun this game, and it was a really awesome combination. But yeah, I think there's not too much else to say about Portuguese. I think, a general summary of them, they're very good at booming. They have a great economy. They have a great selection of units. I would say British are kind of like their sister civilization in that, they're both very good at booming. They both have very versatile military. They don't have, very niche unique units, but all their unique units do something very well. So they all have their place in just kind of your normal anti-infantry, anti-cavalry combo. So even though they're not like very special, they do something very useful for the military. So they both have very versatile and very just generally just good units, like upgraded musketeers, royal guards, all that kind of stuff. They have great navies. And they have, and the Portuguese in particular have great map control because your explorer has his ability to see a portion of the map so you know what your enemy is doing at all times pretty much. Plus, your sprawl from all your town centers allows you to just take immense map control and just pressure your enemy to kind of stay in their own little base during the late game portion of the game. So overall, Portuguese extremely fun civ to play in my opinion. Very good civ also, especially good in team games. So if you're playing more of the 3v3, 4v4 games, definitely give them a try. You'll see how crazy their economy can get, and you'll definitely, I think, have a lot of fun pumping out a lot of Unettes, organ guns, castors, all those kind of units. I think are pretty fun to play with. So definitely give them a try if you haven't already. But with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications so that you get notified when there's more Civ overviews. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.